Your Excellency, so we've seen a lot of success stories in the UAE, homegrown success stories like Tabi, Kareem. We've also seen companies establishing regional headquarters, for example, Binance. We've seen tech giants like OpenAI and TikTok show interest in the UAE. How is the investment, or how are the investments into the country, specifically into digital infrastructure, playing a role in this shift, and how is it changing the nature of business being conducted in the country?
First of all, Naoufal, thank you so much. I would like to take a step back and really thank the host, Sheikh Khalid, Sheikh Salman, and my colleague ministers from around the region for being here and as well addressing the audience. And I think before starting, I think it's a great opportunity to be in the room to speak about our design of our economy that has been redesigned maybe in the last 4.5 years post-COVID. Now, let's not go very far away. COVID-19 was just 4.5 years ago. If I would like to add to the panel before us on the risks, there is a big risk to think about is another pandemic, a perma-pandemic, another healthcare issue that might go into a lockdown. But God forbid, we don't want to be there. I think the most important aspect is on the liberalization program on the UAE's economy is kind of, opening up, giving the opportunity of property rights from intellectual properties, from copyright, from trademark, from owning your own company. We started with the first law, which is the liberalization of the commercial company law, 100% ownership in mainland. I think that by itself, tagged along with the golden visas, the green visas, which was given away to entrepreneurs, investors, scientists, even the top students around the world. Musicians as well, sportsmen. I think that's something which really shows that giving you a 10 years visa without a sponsor, without opening a company and operating, gave that kind of freedom to say, yeah, that's the place I want to be. Now, coupled up, of course, with infrastructure, with the liberalizations of our financial districts, the IFC and AGM, with the kind of, the systems we have of common law and civil law in the mainland, but that kind of opportunity, and last but not least, the quality of life. I think it's important to mention that because it gives this kind of opportunity of people to enjoy their time, to really be part of the economy and to really go out and have food and beverage. And the UAE has shown F&B scene is huge. Have you tried the Dubai chocolate recently?
I've been wanting to, but I never find slots.
That's it. That's the kind of thing. I've been reading an article the other day where it says the people are actually traveling in to have chocolate, just for the kind of that food and beverage scene. We've seen Michelin stars as well, restaurants coming up in the last 2 years. We're seeing more and more happening. So this kind of quality of life that really opens up, and the leadership of the UAE has really opened up the economy to be welcoming for everyone.
So, as you said, we've seen many initiatives by the UAE done to attract foreign direct investments and also people to stay and invest further in the UAE. But also, as you spoke about COVID-19, we've seen some shift in supply chain disruptions. We've also seen further challenges in the region. At the same time, the UAE is positioning itself to be a trade hub in the region. Can you talk more about the trade corridors being established and the role the UAE wants to play in that changing dynamic?
The UAE is not a hub. The UAE is a nexus between East and West. The nexus of trade is a corridor that has been built. So let's go back 50 years ago when the start of the seaports in the UAE and then the airports back in the 80s and 90s. Today, the UAE is a brain port. We're in the business of ports. From sea to air to brain port for a lot of people coming in. That kind of nexus that's creating between East and West, the melting point that where companies and trade and businesses comes together, is creating this kind of dynamism for the world. We have trade relationship that goes beyond, a strategic relationship with countries, with neighboring countries, with the GCC, with Iran, with the rest of the world. And this is something which is an important aspect. And I think that's the UAE, wise leadership, the diplomacy engine that the UAE works on has brought this kind of collaboration that happens around the world. And I think that's where the UAE stands on, where we are a trading kind of hub that brings people, brings businesses, and brings the logistics together.
And how are the CEPA agreements playing into that role?
Well, what's the aspects of becoming the kind of the hub of port of everything? I think the most important is we cannot offer 9 to 10 million of the population as an economy for our businessmen and women. I think what's important is that we offer more than 300 million people. We offer the aspects of how can we connect the region. Now, the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement gave that opportunity for the business economy and environment to really open up. We've signed 14 of them at the moment. We target signing 26. Now, creating this kind of dynamism and creating this kind of approach brings up the opportunity to say, here's the kind of trade nexus is happening. So let me explain a little bit more detailed on it. So it's not just a trade between bilateral to bilateral. CEPAs is more than that. It says about how do you take a product, roll from a country A to the UAE, add 30 to 40% to it, and it becomes viable to trade to country C. Country C adds another value to it, becomes viable, tradable to a country D. Now, that's an engineering, a re-engineering of the trade routes, right? Now, what does the UAE does is, we do not need huge factories, we need more micro factories. How can you add the 30, 40%? That's when it comes, it fits within the kind of agreements of the trade agreements globally, and it becomes a trading commodity to the next country, and then the next country, and the next country. That's the nexus we're talking about. How do we become a nexus in the region and control, bringing the east and west to east is by adding that kind of added value. Now, 14 is signed. There's a one signing this week. The Vietnam was signed last week. There's more to come. We're signing 26 by the end.
If we want to talk more specifically, what region or countries are of interest to the UAE to form strategic and economic partnerships?
Well, of course, the major trading partners are India, for instance. India, Turkey was the biggest trading partners for us before the CEPA. And when the CEPA came in, we saw a 10% increase in India. And Turkey, we saw a 15% increase in trading. And we're seeing more and more in the region. Now, we were seeing the kind of the shift of the world. The global south is the most important as well. How the shift is happening towards Africa, to Latin America. That's global south is a vital importance to do so. Now, we have a huge ports working on. We have a huge nexus happening. His Excellency Sultan bin Sulayem with us today. He has a panel after me, but I think it's important to mention as well the point of global south, because that's the connectivity of the world. The needs in Africa, the needs in Latin America, and how do you connect that as well around with the trade?
Your Excellency, no doubt we're seeing what's happening in our region. Unfortunately, the conflicts that are happening. How does the UAE navigate these challenges?
Well, like I said, conflicts, if you go back, conflicts has been in the region for the last 1,000 years. And I think that's where we already have the resilience in our leadership to navigate through these conflicts. What I say to investors is, if you're going to look at conflicts and you're going to be away from investing, then you're losing a lot of opportunities. What I say is, the region, the Kingdom of Bahrain, the Kingdom of Saudi, the UAE, and all the GCC offers resilience, offers stability, offers a place to increase, to invest, and offers a place to really grow. I think that's the most important aspect. But if you want to talk about conflicts, then you can go back 1,000 years and more, and there's a lot of histories about conflicts in the region that the whole GCC itself have proven and shown to the world there is a stability, there is depth, and there is actually a growth of economy that's happening in the region, and an opportunity for investment for everyone.
You spoke about the GCC, so my next question is, how does the GCC work closely together when it comes to economic partnerships to further enhance these ties?
Let me speak about tourism, for instance. Tourism is big in the UAE. Tourism is a huge aspect for all the GCC. The GCC Council came together to really announce the GCC tourism visa across. Now, it works and operates like the Schengen that happens in Europe, but it's an opportunity for tourism to come in and really visit all the 6. Now, it's due to be implemented. It's with the Ministry of Interior.
When?
Soon to be implemented. I'll keep it there. But I think the important now, what we're working between the GCC ministers now is on a grand tour program. How do we create a grant tool for 30 days in the region, for 21 days in the region, for 3 weeks? If you want to spend 21 days in the region, where do you go? So us, as a GCC now members on the tourism, this design how to spend 7 days, 5 days, 6 days in the GCC, using that tourism visa that will help a program that you say, all right, I want to spend more time in the region. I want to visit all 6 countries of the GCC, and I want to see each and every one of them. And that's the important aspect. You know, tourism, yes, COVID-19 took tourism a big blow, but what happens is we saw a huge tourism increase. Tourism today in the UAE itself is about 12% of GDP. It hires more than 800,000 employees. It's a huge growth of investment, and I think a lot of people today see the GCC as a place to visit and stay longer than 3 to 4 nights. The target is to reach more than that. In the UAE, we want more than 7 nights. But I think in the region as well, we can increase for 21 nights, and maybe 30 nights across the long haul travels from the world.
Also, if you have an Emirates ID and you're a resident and not a citizen, you can go to several countries in the world just with this ID or get an e-visa. How does this help expats residing in the UAE to also continue coming and investing into the country?
I think that's something which really showed a huge potential. When we saw countries, for instance, like Georgia, let's take an example, that said any resident in the UAE is welcome to visit Georgia. We've seen Azerbaijan, for instance. Any resident in the UAE who has an Emirates ID or a resident visa can visit Azerbaijan without a visa. Now that shows the kind of trust in the UAE's system and the trust in the UAE's security to accept UAE's residents to be applicable to. And that shows as well. Now more and more countries are coming in that kind of program and saying, if you're a resident of the UAE, you're welcome to come to our country without a visa. And that's something that really, we want to encourage investors to be part of the UAE. The accessibility that you'll get across the region. There's more countries coming into that program, and we're going to push it forward.
And last but not least, and circling back to the first question, when we speak about digital infrastructure, so myself as a resident of the UAE, everything is on my phone, whether it's the UAE Pass app, everything is so easy. So the digital infrastructure in the country, how does it help companies in tech come and invest further into the UAE?
His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, back in July 2020, he said in a Twitter or X platform now, he said, I want 50% of all government entities, service centers, to move digitally. When we looked at it, the Ministry of Economy went 100%. We had 7 service centers, 1 in every emirate. And I asked a couple of questions. I asked, where is the service centers? Well, they are here in 7 emirates. Who works there at the moment? Well, there's COVID-19, it's on lockdown. There's few movements. Everyone's working from home digitally. All right. And I asked the question is, what happens if you close all 7? And the team looked at us and said, yeah, we can do that. So we moved 7, but we were ready in a digital infrastructure to move to closing all 7 and transforming our service centers digitally. Now, that saved a lot on the budget. That saved a lot as well. But that kind of digital support and digital readiness was huge. Now, when we signed the SEPA as well, we looked at our digital infrastructure internally in the ministry. And that by itself, for instance, now today we have a pre-approval certificate of origin that's issued by the ministry. By just applying to the SEPA and putting the code, it actually analyzes the risks, looks at the system, and then sends a notification for the inspector to inspect the trade and inspect the goods or the factory as well, and preps it for the SEPA program. By that, using that digital infrastructure is ready. I was with a conversation just the other day with one of the investors who invests in the UAE, and he was talking about how shocked he was by buying a property in the UAE. And he said, I love the property, I wanted to go and buy it. I went down, I finished the notary public, and I got my title deed through an SMS within 10 minutes. He said, that never happens around the world. How do you do that? And I said, well, this is where our leadership focus since back in the 90s and early 2000s and more is pushing the government from e-government to digital government to kind of a digital economy at the moment, and that's the way forward, to digitalize the whole infrastructure and the investment in it to make it easier, not just as moving around in the UAE between work and home, but actually moving around applications, applying, getting everything done, and getting your work as easy as possible.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency.
Thank you.